One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego. Or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous, and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire. At the moment, Feet to the Fire. I'm your host, James Alphayanchik, the Black Knight of talk radio, or so have been called in days of yore. It is, at the moment, today, at the recording of this, it is March 15th. Ides of March are upon us and all that there stuff. It is 5:30 p.m. Central U.S. time at the moment. We're doing this a little bit early. I have to prepare for work tomorrow. I am well in the sea of COVID-19. I'm noticing some of the people on Facebook are doing their little tests and that nobody knows anybody who has it. We've read about people, but no one actually knows somebody who has it, at least on there. It's not really a scientific poll, but it is interesting that people are getting it, but no one actually knows anybody who's getting it. Not, of course, the problem is when you talk about these kind of things, what ends up happening is, oh, you're saying it's not true? What are you, fake? What are you, Alex Jones? It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's overblown, while it is serious for certain people, and that people should take cautions in doing it, and that the problem, if you do get it and you're in a risk group, it is very serious. It's not to be taken lightly. However, it's being used as some kind of, geopolitical football. But anyway, it's not what I'm going to talk about. I do want to talk about some of my experiences so far with this, and impressions I've gotten from people within it, and what's going on in the big chess game that's happening. I want to say that, I'm going to talk in terms of spirituality, and some might even say religion, but don't let that deter you in getting the principles I'm saying. Whether I get these principles from religion, Jesus, spirituality, prayer, meditation, these principles are still applicable to humanity. And I am not a Bible thumper, nor am I going to beat you over the head and threaten you with damnation if you don't believe me or follow me or whatever. And so one of the reasons I've been cautious about mentioning things about what Jesus taught over there is not because of an embarrassment of Jesus, or I don't believe Jesus existed, or I feel I even have to explain it. It doesn't matter whether or not you believe Jesus existed or not, or whether whatever theological attachment you may have to Jesus or not, whatever intellectual attachment you do or do not have. The principles can be very true nonetheless. And this is why I think it's important to learn these principles. Now, I think what having a, quote, relationship with Jesus, unquote, is very valuable in that you could develop a conduit into the inner spiritual relationship with God via this vehicle, which is great, and it has helped many people. I myself being one of them. I make no apologies for that, but I just did want to caution people who just simply, he's going to mention Bible verses, forget it, and then come up with all these convoluted arguments about the Bible and whether it really happened, or what, the Nicene Council changed everything. So, that's all distractions. That's all irrelevant. That's all methodologies for the dark side to get you to not follow the light side. Now, I can go into like a long philosophical discussion on why there's a light and dark. If God is everything, why is he allowing the devil to do all this other stuff? I don't want to get into that. It's all nice and wonderful to talk about when you're sitting back and relaxing on a porch somewhere, but we are in a war and a battle, and there is unique things in our history are happening. You can go back and touch bases with certain points in time, the Great Depression, red lines, and so forth. You can go to those areas and find correlation, but it is all in a different context and with extra stuff added and side issues and different changes in technologies. And so none of them are applicable straight up. We're on new ground. We're living on new ground day after day, and how we act in this ground is important. And what I'm calling it today as I'm talking about what we're in is a crucible. A crucible, for those who, it's a means for heating up, notably precious metals, and getting it up very high in temperature so it burns off impurities, leaving the pure gold, silver, etc., which is the metaphor used in spiritual applications. Quoting in Proverbs 27, the crucible is for silver, the furnace is for gold, and each is tested by the praise according to him. Very interesting. The phraseology is that you're tested by the praise according to him. The people around you will be judges, as well as what you say in application to what you do. It's kind of an automatic system. All that has to happen is an external situation happens to trigger the internal. And if the internal is properly balanced in a Christ teachings, which is, it's not like Jesus invented these teachings. These are the teachings of God principle. You can read them everywhere and anywhere, with the exception in the satanic works. So, it's the point is that we're in a time of testing. Now, people say, wait a minute, you can run out of time of testing? Jacob's troubles, the end times, we're going to be spared from that through the rapture. Now, I'm not even talking about whether that's true or not. It's irrelevant. You have to pair all this theology off so you don't lose the forest in the trees, or you don't lose the trees in the forest. Each way you look at it, you have to pair all this stuff out and get down to the bare basics. That's why I love what Jesus teaches, because he gets down to the bare brass tacks. And I was in the store shopping. I came off from work, and I went into the store, and I knew this was happening from my connections with the social media outlets that I have, tenuous connections with various few people. I don't get into the whole mass thing of it. I can get into some of the observations of that. But I knew this was going on. It wasn't like I walked in cold off the street. But I was just shocked to see the people hoarding the items. Most notably, old news now, toilet paper. And I found that amazing. Somebody said along the way, in the social media, on TV, somebody posted pictures of these things going on. And I think some of the pictures at first anyway were false because they were almost like it was planned to start this ball rolling, and that they were showing aisles that were being cleared for seasonal change. Now, I should have taken a picture of it. I was in my local store. There was an aisle that was empty. I could easily have taken a picture of that and shown that, oh, look, the aisles are empty. But it was a seasonal change. But I didn't because the aisle next to it had toilet paper and it was empty, right? But my point is that somebody came up and said these things. Now, think about the ramifications of this. You know, people who have the flu don't go through toilet paper. It's generally a I'm not going to say the word now. A breathing disorder. And it's not, you don't get the runs. I mean, you can get a stomach intestinal flu, but that's not COVID-19, right? And so somebody comes up with this arbitrary button to push, get the stuff, and all the lemmings, all the programming is done. This is a test of the programming system. This is the test of the professional, i.e. the MSM, news media, and the amateur, i.e. the social media, propaganda machines. This is a trial test run. This is a shot across the bow. This is the architect, to use the Matrix metaphor, telling Neo that they have a plan for everything. And you do this, and then they've already have a plan to do that. Trump being the David versus Goliath of globalism and the satanic overruling, I'm putting two words together. The ruling system of the world, the Lord of the world and its system. It's a test. Trump has come in and is defying it, is the David shooting at Goliath. And they started all, and what most things will be is they'll take the easiest way to try and knock it out. And they worked up Trump from the bottom up, going through all the various trials. Now, I'm looking at Trump as like a spearhead in this. It's not. I'm not defending Trump. I'm not some kind of a Trump worshiper. I mean, Trump took his position on where he's at with his money and his knowledge and his leadership, and decided to make a stand for the love of humanity, this country, and then outward toward humanity. He's lost money on it. This is not defending him. I'm just trying to take it very non-emotional logically. Obviously, the guy is losing in all measurable material categories: money, fame. He's reviled. His family's reviled, and there's no benefit in this other than the benefit that he's trying to do for the system. He's not 100%, but he's a pragmatist, and in order to fight the New World Order, the deep state, the satanic overlords, I mean, whatever you want to call it, the system, the matrix, to fight that, it is a very powerful, complex system. And it has had thousands of years and depth in the planning of manipulating humanity over centuries that is being shared, if I can use the word spiritually, negative spiritually, into the players that do their jobs. That's why I like the movie The Stand. It's very good. I mean, I don't like Stephen King. I think a lot of his stuff is extremely perverted. And, of course, he's turned into the I don't know what you want to call them, liberal knuckleheads that are out there. But The Stand was very good. In fact, it's another thing about what God can use people and bring out stuff. It doesn't mean that the person is, it's like, don't shoot the message because of the messenger. No, don't shoot the messenger because of the message. Take the message on its own and apply it as it might be applied, which is what I've done. In The Stand, I've read the book again, and I've watched I have the actual DVDs from the TV movie. I watched again. It's very, very good. I mean, flawed, but very good. Is that there is a battle going on between good and evil, and God uses all of this for a greater good. Well, wait a minute. How can people be killed, the children being aborted? How can it be used for greater good? I've come up with scenarios over my life trying to understand God in the system. And there's certain, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word is in geometry, theorems or axioms, or I even forgot the givens that help understand the situation. And God will repay everybody. So if you're a child who was born in this system and has lost your possibility to live because of the decay of the government system with abortions, that child will be compensated. If you were tortured, if you lost stuff, if the compensation will be many times over. That's not the issue, right? So it's not like, wait a minute, how can God make this all right? There's no question about that happening at some point along the way. So I don't even go into that area. Now, me being alive on the earth, I am worried about, I don't want to be thrown, tortured and thrown in prison or simply just thrown out on the street in a economic collapse. I mean, I don't want any of that. I'm not looking for that. I'm not saying, that's all right. God will take care of you. Well, he will, but people do sacrifice their lives, livelihoods, loved ones for the greater good, and it's not pleasant, but that's the way the system is, and it will work out in the end. So I don't get into that part of the argument, but what I do look into it is like, here I am alive right now. I have this theological construct of how the universe works, which I try to talk about on the show. And I look at where I'm at, what's going on, what is my role in this point now? Because what I do here will greatly affect my future, both here and there, quote unquote. I'm not doing it out of fear, like I'm going to get tossed in hell if I don't do things right. That's not my point. I come up with the whole theological construct that this is all part of a plan that helps everybody and the individual at the same time. So I'm looking at verses like this, and I wrote some stuff here at the beginning. I said, learn from the Pharisees. Do not let your theology get in the way of seeing where we are in the latter days and clearly see what is unfolding before our eyes. Because the Pharisees thought Jesus was going to come as a political Messiah and take them out and get rid of the Romans and all this stuff, right? And Jesus came and he was rejected. They didn't fit that role. Now, today we're in a similar situation. The church has become the new Pharisee situation that, depending on your theology, Jesus is going to come, take us away, and beat the bad guys. Now he's going to do it. He didn't do it then, but now he's going to do it. And I'm saying beware of how you decide how God should do. Look at how the experts in the past have missed it. What makes you any better? So I go very humbly in this, and I ask God for guidance, and I've come up with some things. What we're doing right now is we're in a time of testing. It's a crucible burning off the impurities and purifying your soul. So when you go through these trials and traumas and things come up, that's the impurities coming up. You go to prayer and God for help and to deal with it. I've had my crucible recently where was refinancing, the job closed, had to find another job. How am I going to do all of this? And I was actually overwhelming my infrastructure, my mental, physical infrastructure with worry about what's going on. Now, I'm sure it was enhanced by the energy we're in now. All the energy is the psychic, spiritual energy is being turned up so that when people do get upset, you have a throwing gasoline on fire effect. The fire would be the normal reaction. Now it's gasoline thrown on it. So you got to be very careful how you react because people are going to get mad and kill people and ruin their lives and the other lives. And you're going to make decisions both in lust and in anger or other ways that will cause grave harm that you might have been able to cool off in the past. But the time is up, or this is the time of testing. The metaphors are fantastic with the crucible. The temperature is turning up. The things that were normally laying inside the gold and silver are starting to burn off and cause distress on the whole system, and you have to let them go and understand which way to go. Now, what I did, I would say I did it poorly, but I did rely on God, got me through this time. I just knew in my mind I wasn't worthy of something working out. It wasn't like, I deserve this. No, I wasn't worthy of it, but it just seemed to me that the stuff that I went through to get to this point, to have something not work out, it just didn't seem like I could have just not walked out earlier, And so I kind of just relied on it, and whatever happens, good or bad, I'll get through it. If I lose the house, if I do this stuff, I will get through it. I've gotten through a bunch of other stuff in my past. That's kind of how I limped through it very nervously and a heartache, and it worked out. All right. So what we are now is we're in a crucible. What is our real alliance? Who's our allegiance? I said, we are in a time of testing. What are you made of? What percentage of silver or gold is your stuff, to use these metaphors? To what is your allegiance? And thus to who your heart belongs. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve Mammon and God. Mammon being the world, even simply the mechanisms of the world, whether it be the stocks or, for that matter, toilet paper. Trusting in the world and the system of the world versus trusting in God. When you get in these times of testing in the crucible, it becomes very important to make your principles what you base things on, regardless of how it looks out there. I mean, I'm going in the store, I'm seeing people buying giant amounts of toilet paper, and I'm looking at it going, why? First of all, the logical aspects of it are ridiculous. Right? They're not stopping to make toilet paper. They're still making toilet paper. It's still going to come out. What's going to happen after this flu blows over is that you're going to have people with gobs of toilet paper, which they're not going to buy, which is going to cause a reverse backflow in the system and cause trouble. There's nothing wrong with stocking up on items. In fact, if people were doing it rightly, they would have a couple of weeks worth of stuff already in stock, and it would have been no big deal. Lucinda tends to buy a lot of toilet paper and paper towel and cleaning fluids more than I would keep on stock. She literally has one extra bottle of cleaning fluid over the one that we have, or extra rolls of toilet paper and all that. So how is she looking in this time? I went into the store. I simply bought a 4-pack of toilet paper, to kind of keep it up while we have the reserve at home. So, I mean, she's looking pretty good in this. And, well, some might have said it was OCD. She cleans so well and all this stuff. Well, it worked out, didn't it? It worked out. And if we all did this, where we end up having, like our generation before us, I had a friend of mine whose mother who's passed away, God bless her, but she was, her and her husband, his father, were through the Depression. He's just a little bit older than me. She used to can. They would grow stuff during the summer, and they would can goods, which they used during the winter. It was like this. That was what they normally did. It wasn't an effort. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, we got to store this stuff. And so when she passed away, my buddy actually went a year or more on the stuff she had canned good. Of course, it was just him as opposed to her husband. And what I'm saying is that we could get into habits, normal habits, so that when something comes up, there's not even upset. There's no issue. So it ends up better buy stuff that makes it necessary to have toilet paper. Yeah, the food and whatnot. This is Milton in the chat room. So I'm watching these people, they're buying this stuff. I'm thinking, what is the motivation? It's not logic, because toilet paper is nothing to do with the disease itself. There's nothing that said, we've stopped making toilet paper. There's no more trees, or in fact, we should be using hemp, quite frankly, for all the paper products. It's cheaper, better, and it's easier in terms of infrastructure. But the only thing left is that's what the programming was. It was the lemming effect. It was somebody on Facebook posted there's no toilet paper. Oh, my God, I got to go out and buy toilet paper, which, of course, means then now there's no toilet paper because everyone's buying cartfuls of it. And so I'm looking at it going, you're causing your own trouble only because you looked at someone else who said, we got toilet paper. You didn't think about it. You didn't go, why? Why? Is there a shortage of toilet paper? Why is there a shortage of toilet paper? What does it got to do with the flu? No one thought about it. They just reacted to it and that is what we are programmed for. You have to fight the programming. I'm not sitting here bragging like I'm better than this. No, I got to fight the programming all the time. We all have to do that. The media has been programming us forever. Back in the days, in the 70s or maybe let's say in 60s in television, the programming was very subtle. It wasn't as big a deal in as much as attracting your attentions, to get sell commercials or whatever. There were some social norms that were programmed. Leave it to Beaver or whatever. But as time went on, they went, you know what? We can be proactive with this. We can actually tell them what to do. And those things started. Now, I'm not saying they didn't even do that back then, but I'm saying it's more normal now. When you watch a television show, I can go through a new television show and take all the social programming that is being used. It's not attracting you. You're not watching the new Star Wars episodes because they have female heroines that are acting like males and downplaying the females. That's not an attraction in as much as it's a programming. So now when people who like Star Wars see this, they go, they get that programming of what they're doing, the demasculization and the masculization of females. And some of the proof of this is my cousin, who is completely apolitical, doesn't pay attention to the news, nothing whatsoever. I just has no idea what's going on in the world, other than the tunnel vision and what you're doing. I'm not criticizing or praising that. It's just the way it is. So she's asking me, goes, what's up with why are they doing this with these, they're making the female, they're not making them strong, but they're making them they're tearing down the males. I mean, look at the old Star Wars. Princess Leia was a strong character, but it wasn't at the expense, and it was a partnership and so on. And I'm like, you're looking at the social programming. Well, there's a case where someone who was involved in understanding the programming, but still sensed it anyway, because of the changing of how the original Star Wars themes were going. She picked it up, and why is it changing? It doesn't match with the original, And I just use that as anecdotal evidence. So this is all programming. So Trump has been successful staying off one attack after the other. The end result is they cannot relinquish power, and they cannot allow their corruption to be exposed. At all costs, everybody and everything is expendable except their position. And so it gets worse and worse and worse. But it also gets more obvious. So when somebody is attached to the principles of loving one another, helping one another, and that kind of stuff, they start to see it more and more. So you see people who were in the Democratic Party, for example, who are now disenchanted with their party because they're seeing, what are these people doing? And the Republican, who the deep stater Republicans, are being driven away and made obvious, and people are making a decision in a political sense what they're going to do. Well, that goes out into the business world. It goes out into everyday life. We're in a time of revelation. The stuff is being revealed for us to make a conscious choice. You're going to have to decide, who is on the Lord's side. I love the movie Ten Commandments. So I know it's not accurate in many places with the Bible. That's irrelevant. I liked it when Moses comes out there with the Ten Commandments. Who's on the Lord's side? And they make a big split there. This is what's happening. Who is on the Lord's side? I'm not talking about the Catholic God or Jewish God. I'm talking about the real principles of the creator of the universe as manifested through various philosophical outlets. My preferred one being Jesus, and I could give you many reasons on my own, not why I'm pushing it. Who is going to be this? Who is going to follow those principles? I mean, listen to this verse. Give to everyone who asks of you, and whoever takes away what is yours, do not demand it back. And I asked, does that include toilet paper? Because what we have today is we have a different version of Black Friday. It's Black Friday. That was the test market to get that whole mentality up there. And now we turned it into toilet paper day. And everybody goes out and goes nuts in the stores buying this stuff. I'm walking in the stores, which I go to every week, the same store. I'm walking in the stores, noticing the amount of things purchased are amazing. And there's no reason why. It's not that there's no more tomato paste left. One of the problems with this is the supply chain is made to do certain volumes. I mean, we've become very efficient. This is one of the downsides. If there is a demand, you have a vacuum. Now it gets filled, but it takes a time frame. It may take a few days. You have people who take advantage of it by selling things more expensively. Again, where does that fit in? I mean, one of the things I complimented the store about was they had sale items, and they kept the sale items. They didn't turn around and cut all the sales, knowing people were going to buy this stuff, no matter how much it was. They're buying things that they normally wouldn't even buy because the other stuff is gone. But they just, and I talked to one of the people there, and they said that their order for the next two orders are 3 times the normal size. Some of the items, like in the produce section, the supply is not unlimited because it's grown and shipped. You can't just grow more, right? But when it comes to the other units, cans and whatnot, so it's going to come back. And now these people are going to have all this stuff. Well, what can we learn from it? We can learn from it not to panic, because of all the systems in the whole world. The United States system will fill the gap with items. If you stop making it, for example, if they turn off the electricity, which is now, of course, people are saying it's going to happen, and you got to tell me why. There's no reason why. They're not going to turn off electricity to save for COVID-19. If they turn off the electricity in terms of a government shutdown because there's a revolution, whatever, okay, fine. But they're not stopping to make the items. This gouging, this glut is causing a problem which will reverberate through the system. Completely unnecessary. The fear over the virus, completely unnecessary. They're shutting down the schools. They're shutting down sporting events. All that's completely unnecessary. If people calmly took precautions, no problem. We've had these things before. I'm just stunned and amazed at how stupid we are and how easily we're manipulated. And this should be a big wake-up call to all the people who are like, I'm gonna make a stand against the government on it. They're gonna, come take it, and I'm gonna. The weapons that'll be used against you is your neighbor. It is from great quotes from Matrix, with Morpheus talking about the people in the Matrix is your enemy. Nothing personal against them. They're in the Matrix. The person next door is going to buy up your supplies. That's an enemy, if you will. And this is where you have to trust in God. I mean, especially in America, there's very few people who can't trim back on a meal or two, right? Obviously, there's people, Lucinda being one of them, she's already underweight, so that's not really an issue. But I'm saying, for the most part, everything can be worked out. It reminds me of that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, when they were taking the money out of the bank, and he talked about everybody, your money's in Joe's house and all this stuff. This is what we have to think about. If we had our heart right with the godly principles, this would not be happening. No matter what they do, no matter what fear comes on the news and TV, no matter what virus comes in there, this would not be happening if we had ourselves spiritually grounded. It wouldn't happen. And to the what I'm shocked about is none of this stuff is new to me, but to see how easy it was manifested and to what degree, that was stunning to me. Because I've talked to people before, for example, about the stocks. The stocks are way overvalued. It has nothing to do with viruses and nothing to do with anything else. The stocks are way overvalued. Just listening to Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank when they trim the people up there, give them a trimming because their stock value is too high. They're like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you charging me more in this stock? Look at your profit to debt ratio and your profit to expenses ratio and all this. You're charging me too much, and yet the market is like anywhere from 3 to 10 to 70 times overvalued. There's no reason why the market is this high. There's no reason. It's completely. You have to go into a whole new level of, well, now our norm is our profit expense to income expense ratio is now 50 times. That's the normal one. Okay, that's how we work now. I mean, that's what you'd have to do to make this work. So when this happens and they start selling off, they should have sold off a long time ago. It should never have got that high to begin with. Why did it get that high? To me, it was, again, putting your trust in mammon and greed and not being realistic about the values of the items. This is why people in California are paying $500,000 for a house, and it went down to, $150,000. And they go, wait a minute, I paid $500,000 for my house. Now it's not worth more. You shouldn't have paid $500,000 for it. But this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. It's the materialism. Les Visible has written some really nice stuff about how attachment to materialism leads to insanity. And here we are, people buying tons of toilet paper. It's insanity. So just think if they turn the burners up on some aspects. The good news is the people will buy a bunch of stuff, the glut will be filled, and now there'll be too much, and it'll back down. But it just lets you know how the matrix can use the people around you in this situation. I mean, it's there in Technicolor, showing out. Let me go to my page because I posted some stories that are going to be along this. I posted on Facebook. I think I could put a link to it. A doctor wrote a very good, rational, sound, sensible approach to deal with the virus. No big deal. I mean, if you're 80 and have emphysema, it's a big deal. You better not get this, okay? And you take steps to do this. And if you have somebody who's 80 with emphysema and you take steps to not bring it into them, okay, that's serious, right? That's common sense, what you do. Yeah, I'll tell you this later. It's a little levity. I'll save it for. When I went to the store with all of this stuff going on, I got everything that I needed because I bought what I needed in reason. I couldn't get the sanitary wipes. Lucinda had we got like a 2-pack or a 3-pack on sale a few weeks ago, so we had extra on there. But we have it, right? So what led me to buy the 3-pack a few weeks ago? It was a little bit of a savings. It wasn't a whole lot. I'll get that, And it turns out that that urge to buy that 3-pack a couple weeks ago means we have enough now. This is what I mean about following your inner voice. You can actually get through. You don't have to have 5 years of food stored up and 5 years of toilet paper stored up to get through this. You just need enough to get through it. And that comes from having a spiritual connection with God. Now, I marvel at those things. I was like, wow, when I went for my refinancing, I just said, well, I better do it now. It wasn't this giant, like I didn't have a arrow in the sky shoot, down, a skywriter. And yet, if I would have waited merely a week later, it would have been trouble with my company selling. The timing was right, and it it scares me. It's kind of like humbling because nothing that I really did, other than just simply go along with it. But that's how we can have, excuse me, that's how I look at how the system works with God. Yeah, I read this. Kaneda had a heart attack on Monday. He's back. He's out. He's back. I prayed for him and so on. So it's good to see that you're back and out. And stop having heart attacks. It's not good for you. I think you should work on not having heart attacks in your near future. So I'm glad that he's back. I said to the manager, because what they did was they were bringing out toilet paper and paper towel in a cart, like a truck cart, and they were just throwing it out on the empty shelves. He's literally throwing it out along the shelves, and people were getting it. And I said to the guys, "It looks like you're throwing out fish to piranhas." It just shows you. I mean, the biggest thing I got is how we should be humbled by how vulnerable we are, and I mean using we as the collective, to propaganda from, the system. We have, let me get my one statement here. Also, I'm going to put these links in the description. There's two scenes from The Architect and Matrix that are very interesting to watch, I think. But let me read this. I wrote this. I think I was inspired, by some inner guidance on this. I mean, I don't know, it just came out, but I tried to look up the phobia for the fear of reality, and doesn't technically exist, but I found somebody who used the same method, how they, like arachnophobia, it's the Greek word for spider and fear. And so they try to come up with what they would perceive would be the fear, which is pragmatic, is the word that comes from the Greek word for real. So it's pragmatophobia, the fear of reality. And this is what I wrote. It leads to a type of schizophrenia that centers, one around delusions, as the realities are misunderstood, unaccepted, or feared to be discovered. So you center yourself on delusions as reality. The result of living in this long enough is, this cognitive dissonance. That is an inconsistent in one's view of reality governed by the desire to have the reality bend to one's own desires or beliefs or to avoid the fears. This is the actual agent that is killing us, and it seems to be very contagious. It has been used by politicians, salesmen, and propagandists for years, but with today's instantaneous and universal media, both news and social, it has reached epidemic levels and is spreading like wildfire. This is what happened. No one wanted to know the reality of the flu or the reality of toilet paper. They went with the fear guiding it. And instead of hitting the real solutions to the problems, they went to a schizophrenic, delusional view of the problems. Like this flu is coming, having 1,000 rolls of toilet paper will get me through it. It's completely irrational. You can have 10,000 rolls of toilet paper or none. It will have no effect on you getting through with the virus. And so this is what we really need to do. We need to keep calm. You need to be real. You need to have analytical skills. You have to try to find the solutions, the real solutions. There's a historical, physical, scientific, mathematical. There's a way to do it. I mean, it doesn't mean you can be cold about it. It's like, well, we don't have enough food, so we'll kill one of our children. And that's not my point. I mean, in a spiritual sense, you would all lay down and die together would be a better spiritual approach than simply killing your 2 children and eating them. All right? So you have to look at it, that aspect of it. Now, when I say you have to, I'm saying to me, we have to. One has to. I'm not preaching here like I'm Mr. Wonderful. I'm in this whole mess with you, bouncing around and trying to figure it out. And all I'm doing here is I'm going like, here's what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Here's the logic behind it. Here's what I see. Here's my work. Here's, if you will, this is how I got to what I'm doing. And I'm sharing it for people to either add to it, take it, or tell me how I can do better. They can go, hey, I tried. It's a good point. I'll add that to my mix, and I'll do better. That's what we're doing here. All right, I'm trying to scroll back up. Now, the goal here is going to be from the powers that be is to try to use this, obviously, to further their goals. And one of the things is to get better power, so they could use the excuse of the virus to institute things. In fact, if you listen a few weeks ago, I did the whole point I was saying is coming right in front of us. It's not the virus; it's what they're doing about it is what the worry is, and it is. What happened to Hong Kong and all their protesting? Gone. I did notice they're still doing it in France, which is good. That's a break against the matrix, if you will. I would like to see Trump have a rally and have people come there responsibly, using bringing their own toiletries and doing this stuff, and that would be great to show that you can still do things and not go nuts. But I doubt that'll happen because now Trump has to react within the context of this emergency, even though a lot of it has been exaggerated for purposes. He's still dealt that you can't just stand against it and go, nope, there's nothing to worry about, because it would give more fuel for the others to use fear against the people who are who can't use the critical thinking about to see the truth and the ramifications for following what they're saying versus looking at it with a critical thought. And so he's got to play within this context to some degree. But if God is in this somehow, and I think what God's role in this is to expose. We're in a time of revelation. The apocalypse is the Greek word revelation, revealing. This is what we're in a time, and things are being revealed that were secret. We're finding out about how deep the trafficking goes and how child sex stuff is in the seats of our own government. The emails came out and whatnot. So things are being revealed. And so the next state is, okay, they're being revealed. Now what are you going to do about it? How are you going to approach it? How are you going to change? This is why the revealing is happening. It's not a judgment. A lot of times, in my theology, judgments are the result of people making choices against what would be the divine creator's principles that are built into the system. So if you do things that go against that system, it's got a built-in consequence. And in the past, there was more of a leeway. Like, in other words, God intervened to prevent the consequence in hopes of the person changing in times. There was a buffer. In the time of the revealing, that buffer zone is shrinking. The instant karma comes faster. The results is you don't have the kind of buffer to fool around with, so you better be square and be on the ball. And we're seeing this play out in front of us. If you're wise, you see this and you avoid falling into the traps. You keep your, what's that? Keep your nose clean, and all these metaphors. You keep it all together because you won't. That one mistake you may have gotten away with ain't going to happen anymore. So you got to be cool about it. And you have to watch out because people are going to go nuts. You watch yourself. You might get overly cynical. You might get overly depressed. And, of course, if you're in depression and you end up going in the pharmaceutical area, that'll cause trouble. And then all of a sudden, what happens when the pharmaceuticals go away? I mean, just think, people worry about getting toilet paper. Well, just think if there was no more pharmaceuticals for depression. And the worst thing you can do if you're on pharmaceuticals for depression is just stop taking them. The very worst thing. It could knock you over the edge. So now that millions and millions of people are on these drugs, now you got to do is just pull the plug on that. So today they are manipulating you to run out of toilet paper. Tomorrow it could be other things. This is why you have to get your act together. And I've talked with people who can't handle this whole concept, and they're like, "Look, if it ever gets that bad, I'll just kill myself. I don't care." Well, it may sound good in a sense, but that's really not a choice. It's a choice that would have spiritual ramifications. I mean, I'm not one that has a very legalistic view of heaven and hell, and I think God is very just, and whatever God comes up with, it'll be fine. But it's not going to be good. I mean, I would say, killing yourself is not ever a good thing. Now, if somebody's tortured in akathisia, they can't take it anymore, they've been in excruciating pain or horrible terror for years, and they turn off the lights, I'm not saying that is looked at the same context as somebody who's like, well, I don't feel like doing it. Like Jeffrey Epstein, I don't want to have to go to prison for this stuff, so I'll just kill myself, provided he actually killed himself. There's a difference, and that's why we have God as a judge, and God is perfect, and God is your defense attorney and judge, not the accuser. Satan is the accuser. So when it comes to justice, I put my faith and trust in God to have it work out. And when I am an agent of some kind of justice, it's fear and trembling. I want to make sure I do my part, whatever it is. And it's always going to be what Jesus said, forgive, help. You got to follow those principles, because when we die and move on, all this stuff is going to be so small in its importance based in the context of the new place that we're at now, that the stuff that was so important, that was so, troubling to do, is going to be like, well, that wasn't that big a deal. And I was looking up some Bible verses, then I'm going to say some, but again, not a Bible thumper. James, one of my favorite, James the apostle, I think is the only apostle that got Jesus' message. Traditionally, James is Jesus' half-brother, born of Joseph and Mary. They put it that way. The Catholics do not agree with that. It doesn't matter. He was a disciple, okay? So it doesn't matter. But James did get it. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let that endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. These are the things that I think about when trouble hits. I'm going with the Old Testament here. God has led you into the wilderness these 40 years that he may humble you, test you, and to know what's in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. He humbled you and let you be hungry, and then fed you with manna to which you did not know. Now, it doesn't matter if this actually happened or not. And I keep saying that because some people go, well, it didn't matter, it didn't happen, don't count. The principle counts. And I got no problem with it actually happening. It doesn't matter to me. Because this happens, God will lead you, or I would say, if I was writing this, I would say allow you to wander in the wilderness, because in that situation, he knows that he could use the situation around you to peel off a lot of the garbage, a lot of the ego, a lot of this stuff, and find out what really you're made of. And when you do find out what you're really made of, a lot of times it actually is like, wow, there's this realization of the spirituality within you. This I thought was interesting. Again, I'm bumping into these things. A lot of people rely on personal experience or even a personal prophetical revealing, which, I've come from more of a Baptist background, which is less charismatic. Others come from more charismatic background, which is more common with the prophesying and all that. But I have put all that aside and tried to find out, and this is what I've come up with myself. If a prophet or a dreamer dreams arise among you and gives you signs and wonders, and the sign and wonders come true concerning what he spoke to you, saying, "Let us go after other gods with whom you have not known, and let us serve them," you shall not listen to those words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord is testing you to find out if you love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul. You shall follow the Lord your God and fear him, keep his commandments. Fear him is more like respect him, listen to his voice, serve him, all that. So here you got someone who's actually given you predictions that come true. So the signs aren't relative. It doesn't matter if the sign is actually coming true, in as much as inside that teaching, is it telling you to walk away from God and put your trust elsewhere. So if you pare down the kind of the very colorful extreme example here, somebody comes by and says, "You do this, I don't know. I'm going to make something up, all right? Probably going to be full of holes, but you invest in this particular way and you make money, and you do. But what you're investing in is actually counterproductive to spiritual principles. You're pretty much doing the same thing here that's told not to." So when you actually do self-examine yourself and what you're doing, it's like, whoa. It's like, hey, so is it okay for you to invest your money into a fund that supports non-spiritual aspects? Let's say takes advantage of some the resources in a country and pays the people there a pittance, but takes the profits. Is that okay? So very important stuff. When you read this stuff and you apply it into a real world situation, it's kind of startling. And then you go like, whoa, I remember I was talking to somebody on a board about psychopathy and how we use it a lot in our daily lives and don't realize it. We're actually parts of it. And he, I mean, not psychopathy, predator mentality is what I was saying. And he said, "Well, give me an example." I said, "Well, what if you're a salesman and you get your client to buy something he can't afford and more than he really needs? Is that okay?" Never heard from him again. Because that's predator practices. You're there to serve your client. You're there to meet his need, not see how much you can oversell him for commission. If you do that, you are sinning in the classic sense of the word. You are taking from that person for your benefit at their expense, which is the opposite of serving them. And when you actually apply this stuff to your life, it's like, whoa, you may have to quit your sales position or change your system and then take a trimming from your boss. But is it better to do that or to acquire this on your soul to be dealt with karmically here or later? Now, another verse I came up with that came across is a common one. Talks about the sower. Went out and sowed the seed. As he sowed, some fell beside the road. It was trampled underfoot. The birds ate it up. Other seeds fell on rocky soil, and as soon as it grew up, it withered away because it had no moisture. Other seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up with it and choked it out. Other seed fell on the good soil. It grew up and produced a crop of 100 times as great. And so the disciples wanted to question him and didn't understand what it meant. Now, I got it the first time I heard it. I understood what it meant, but the disciples didn't know what it meant. They wanted to ask him, so to let you know where they're at the time. And, and that's fine because I like what Jesus said in response. This is where we're at now. We are in it. The words of God has been sown for millennia. And we are now finding out are how we are spiritually in comparison to this parable. Those beside the road are those who have heard, and the devil comes and takes away the word from their heart, so they do not believe and are saved. Those on the rocky soil are those who, when they hear and receive with joy, but have no firm root, they believe for a while, and then in time of temptation, whenever you heard the word temptation, look at the Greek behind it. You can also apply the word testing. Times of testing fall away. We're in a time of testing. Are we going to fall away? We took the words with joy. Yeah, Jesus, God, that's great. We're in a time of testing. Give me that toilet paper. The hell with that old lady who's going to have it, right? How is that, right? The seed which fell among the thorns, those ones who have heard, when they go through life, they're choked out with worries and riches and the pleasures of life, and bring no fruit to maturity. But the seed on the good soil, these are the ones who have heard the word in an honest and good heart, and holds fast and bears fruit with perseverance. I mean, that is right happening before our eyes. Now, it always has, right? But right now, we're in a time of revealing. We're in a time of obviousness. We're in a time of, we don't need to have to read a 1,000-page word exposition on it, a commentary. It's like you can look outside and see it happening in front of your eyes. And so it's a time we're in a time of testing. I don't care what your theology is, pre, post, mid, no, trib, rapture. We're in a time of testing right now. We're in a time of revolution, or revealing. What are you really made of? And you're going to be tested. I'm going to be tested. I mean, when I say you, I'm saying me, and it scares me. Because I don't look at me as like, oh, I'll do good. Oh, yeah, they could pull my fingernails out. I'll be right, because I'm a super faith. No. I am a sinner, and I'm weak, and I'm frail human. But by the divine grace given me, and by the modest, loving God working in me, is the only reason why I can open my eyes every day. That's not being overdramatic. That's being very realistic. Very honest. I got, that's probably why I like the movie 10 Commandments a lot, because Moses is like, hey, why are you sending me? Why me? I'm nothing. And then God picks people who are nothing because they're the best people to use. Because if you're nothing, you're nothing, then God can work wonders in you, because you're not going to get in the way. It's when you feel that you're smart, you know better, you've got all these, answers, you're clever. That's the person who gets in the way of God working the best possible answers to all the solutions in your life. This is why when I think of things, I think of what Jesus said. I don't care about the stories and the Gospels. I don't care about people argue, was Mary a perpetual virgin and all that. I don't care. I mean, she could be or not be. It doesn't matter to me. I got no problem saying she is. I got no problem if she turns out not to have been. It doesn't matter. It does. Well, if she wasn't a virgin, then Jesus isn't sinless and he can't die for his sins. That's all a bunch of theological crap. I know the power of God personally in my life from living in my shoes and having God work within me, and that's all I care about. I'm not going to go out and teach various gospels and just, and all this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what are you going to do when the poop hits the fan? What are you going to do? Are you going to trust in God? Are you going to lay your life down for your friend or your enemy, for that matter, or an unknown person? Are you going to help them? Are you going to give of yourself? Or are you going to think of yourself and take from them? That's the bottom line. That's it. That's the whole deal. And God is the judge in it. And that's why I go, well, what's your theological guide? I just look what Jesus says. What did he say? What's the principles he taught? Doing the best I can. When I'm corrected, I see I did something wrong, I admit it, and get up. Though a man falls 7 times, he gets up the 8th. That is a person who is following the principles of God. It's not if you do it right. That does not make a holy man, if you will, or whatever. It's when you're shown you were wrong, you get up and try again. You do what you're supposed to do when you can, and when you find out how you can do it better, or if you were wrong, you just change. You do it right. You suit it right. That's the bottom line. That's what makes a righteous man, is humility and the ability to turn around and seek the right words. And that's why I've chosen Jesus' words. They work the best. They're amazing. There's no contradictions in them. There's contradictions in theology. There's contradictions in theology and what Jesus says. You want to go through Matthew 24 and look about when they asked Jesus. Now, Jesus is like the Christ in Christian. He's the guy that came to earth. When you see the Father, you see me. He's got the answers. And so when he says what's going to happen in the latter days, that's what I look at. Not what poison pen gospel people stitching together all these different verses and putting them together to come up with something that's comfortable. I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about what's happening in the next moment and how I can emulate the principles what Jesus said. And, of course, I fail, which is very troubling. It's very humbling to constantly fail and have to get up and try again, knowing that if it was up to your own ability, there's no chance of being able to reach, reach glory, but following those principles is what I do. And I'm telling you, it's getting worse. These people who talk about Q and don't worry about the plan. And now I'm reading about how all these shortages are covering for the arrests that are going to happen. I'm like, I can't take it. I can't take the delusional stuff. It's whatever happens, people simply interpret what's going on to fit in their paradigm, and it gets their paradigm gets farther and farther away. And as I said, if this stuff happens, I'm fine with it. If Jesus comes in a pre-trib rapture, I'm totally fine with this. But I'm not going to equate the understanding of eschatology and end-time theology with, I'm not going to equate that to Jesus' teachings. I'm not going to equate Q to Jesus' teachings. I'm not going to use the terms have faith in Q, have faith in the plan. I got faith in God, period. And this whole thing can fall down into complete ashes. And if that's God's plan to prove a point, what am I going to say? No, I'm sorry, God. You said in this verse here, you're going to do it differently. It's very possible this all has to get to a point where to show beyond a shadow of a doubt the fallibility and the flaw in humanity and how it's been corrupted by satanic principles. But the one thing I have a faith in is Jesus was saying what's God the Father is going to do. He doesn't know when the time or place. I'm going to go to Matthew 24 now. Matthew 24:21. Matthew 24, people should read this a lot, okay? For there will be a great tribulation such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, or ever will. What a bunch of words. Where's that coming from? It's coming from Jesus. Unless those days have been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Now, it's very possible, and a very reasonable interpretation of this is that this times are going to get so bad that all life would have been destroyed, or at least humanity. But for the sake of those that God have chose or used here, He's going to cut that short so it doesn't happen. Holy cow. That's where my faith is in. It's not even if I'm one of the elect they're talked about here. Whether I coattail on it or not, I'm trusting in God to say that God's mercy will say, things have gotten so bad, they have proved the point, but I'm not going to let it go all the way because I'm merciful. That's where my stuff is. And I want to do my part as it comes. And one of those things is not going up and buying all the toilet paper, crying out loud. Anyway, I did it a little early today. I'm over an hour already. I did it early because I want to get going for work tomorrow. I want to thank God for the work is doing good. I mean, the company is nice. They're very nice. It's my stress level has gone down a lot. I'm starting it. They start me when I want to start, so I can get proper rest. I mean, it's a total blessing. I make a significant less money than I did before, but I have significantly less stress. I don't have to worry about my truck and all the expenses and the troubles and breakdowns. And so I'm very thankful that through all of this, God worked it out. I also want to thank Alice. Alice, officially, my official Patreon, who is helping pay the bills for the show. God bless her. I want to thank her. And all I can say is that though he may slay me, I will praise his name, because in the greater picture of things, every single thing that happens is going to be for a gloriful aspect. If earth has been chosen, or if more specifically, through the Adam and Eve scenario, has chose to do this, if earth is going to be used to show the difference between good and evil, they chose to have the knowledge of good and evil as opposed to the tree of life. If this rebellion, if you will, is going to be used for eternity, when people think about choosing rebellion, they go, you better go look at the tapes from earth and see what happens. That is where I think what will end up happening from this. It wasn't designed to do this. It was all free will that chose this, and the free will of Satan to manipulate people. But the bottom line is it will be used as an example for eternity so that this may never happen again. It will be worth it for all of it, and we would have the privilege of being the salt of the earth during these times. Actually, let me look that up, because that's another great verse. I don't memorize verses. I can't memorize stuff like that, like perfect. But I can remember principles. Let me do the full chapter, Matthew 5. And of course, the Sermon on the Mount, the greatest teachings in history, the most truth in the most smallest amount of space in history. You are the salt of the earth. But what if the salt becomes tasteless? How can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on your lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. God does not enter space and time to do stuff. God enters space and time through us. That is his choice, and it's only because of his greatness that he could actually make this work out in our frailties. But we are the vessel God enters in space and time. Rather than waiting for someone to come save us, we need to go out and live God's command and let our light shine before the world and help other people. That's the Great Commission. As you go, be an example for all nations, so that they may see your actions and give God glory who's in heaven. This is the stuff. This is the real stuff. This is what we need to hear now. It's not sexy. It's not going to have all of the implications of, what's going on in the background. And all these. I can't read this stuff hardly anymore because it's so delusional and it's so, I don't know what to say. It's non-real, and things that aren't real, that are false, that are pushed as real, bothers me tremendously now. So, all right, I think I'll go at that point. I'm not going to have a lot of time to put this all up. So, I mean, I hope people listen to this if they want to. I read the verses, so, I mean, that's good. If you want to, I use the BibleGateway.com, and then you can type in stuff, and you can pick your version of the Bible. Whatever language you want or version, it's there that you can search in it. So that's what I use. I'm going to go. Let me just go with a prayer. Lord, I love you. I am, because you have worked in my life throughout the years. I pray for those listening. I pray for all of those out there who are in the darkness, that somehow, and I don't know how, and it scares me, but we can be some kind of a light, even though the light is faulty. At least it points to some kind of light through you. I don't know why you're choosing us to work on this, but it's because you're great, I'm sure. And it'll all work out in the end, and that's my faith. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So, anyway. There we go. And we'll see you next time. God bless. And we are definitely in times of trouble and wonder.
My old friend, the one who walked before, the one who walked again, the ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new, revive our inner sight, retell your timeless truths. Oh, ancient one.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync Radio network of stations.